What's up, everybody? Welcome to the High Level Husband Podcast. I am Tommy McCollister, and I'm pumped for this episode because this is an awesome topic that I've been focusing on for the past few days. And it's something I've known for a while. I just never put the words to it. So that's what I love about being a coach is one, it holds me accountable of like all the things I coach and I get to remind myself of all these amazing lessons. But two, I'm become self-growth driven because I have to learn more things to be able to teach everybody else. But as I'm learning it, I'm growing and I love growing. I'm telling you, anybody who's growth driven or not right now, I'm telling you, it's the most addictive thing in the world. And believe me, I've done every drug in the world. This is the most addicting thing ever. It just becomes so cool to be mind blown of how you were before. And one last topic about that. Anybody who's ever played video games, I really don't play video games anymore, except for if I play with my kids for a little bit, and then it's usually the Nintendo Switch. But it used to be, I used to play Call of Duty years ago, and it was like it was so fun to like level up your gun or level up your character or do all of that. It was like, oh man, I got so many kills, and now I got so many experience points and all this thing, and I can do this next cool thing. It was fun. You would like have double point weekends that the software or Xbox would give you, and it was so fun to go play and get all those extra points. That's a freaking video game. But in life, we become this, and once you get that, it's become so awesome because you become a superhero in your own right with all the talents that you have. It's like in a box. I don't know if you ever played a boxing game where like you could go to the gym, and then as you got like farther in your career, you could get more strength, more power, more speed, more endurance. And it was just so cool to build that player up. It was so fun. I think you can do that in like the Madden football game too. But it's just so fun to build that up. Well, we can really do that to ourselves, and it becomes super fun. But one of me is that's kind of off topic. Let's get off topic a little bit sometimes. But what I'm talking about is how our marriage is a direct reflection of us, or the world is how we see the world is how we see ourselves. Is so true. It's so true. If you ever notice anybody who's negative, it's because they think everything's going wrong in the world. Well, it's really them. That's that problem. Ever seen like, man, everybody I ran into today was just an a-hole. No, you're just an a-hole. But if you ever ran into anybody loving, they're always going to say, oh, I met this amazing person today, and then this happened, and then this happened. Why? Because they're that way. But it's the same thing in marriage. When you realize your marriage is just a direct reflection of you, you can do something about it. And most people are going to be like, nah, man, my wife's just not attentive to me, and she's a bitch and all this other thing. Well, chances are you're an a-hole and you're not attentive to them. Or maybe you're attentive, but you don't open up and share. You're not honest and vulnerable. We see our spouse as we see ourselves. And there's some cool different ways to spin this. One, I was talking the other night when I had this concept. I was talking to some friends who live locally. And I was telling them, we were talking about like getting emotional. He's a big business owner. I think he owns like 5 businesses, and his wife's an entrepreneur as well. And we were all talking and just having such just amazing conversations. And we were talking about like crying. And I was saying, it's like, I don't really cry. Like I think in the past few years, in the probably the past 10 years, I've probably cried twice. And one was when I had to put my cat down. So it shows you how much my cats mean to me. And not that I'm a creepy cat guy. Get that out of your minds. But number 2 was when Diane's stepdad died, and her stepdad and I were really, really close. Other than that, I don't cry. And it's weird. It's not because I don't know. Sometimes I wonder, am I not a compassionate person? But then as we were talking through this conversation, I said, well, I think it's because my faith is just so strong that I just know what is possible with God, that the worldly things don't typically impact me like that. Death, okay. Well, you know what? It's sad to see him go, and that's what it's more of, but I know there's heaven. Or whatever it may be, and know God's going to work things together for good. But the point of me saying this is, as we were talking, which is the importance of talking and sharing your honest feelings because you're basically journaling out loud. I was telling him this, and I said, in the past year, I've almost cried twice. And 2 of those times was just when I was pouring into 2 different people because they were having a hard time seeing their greatness. And I do this on a daily basis, but there's just certain times where it tugs on my heartstrings more, especially when I really, really know these people. And 2 of my really new, like super close, I'd spent a lot of time with. And I almost got the tears from telling them. And I was just telling him, this is how I see you. This is how God sees you. Like, no, here's all the amazing things that you've done in your life. And here's the skill sets that you have and all of this. But all they can see is a brick wall. I don't see a brick wall. And I'm just pouring into them. And I'm getting emotional. Well, you know why I'm getting that way? Because I see the world as I am. There is no limitations. All of our setbacks are just for our comebacks. All of our pain and trauma can be used for good. If we don't think that there's a way, God will make a way, especially when we give him something to work with and we take action. So I'm telling these people things because I see the clear picture, but they're blind to it. But I'm going in and I'm so passionate about it because that's how I see myself. But here's what makes that special. It's because I was in their spot for so long that I know that hurt and that limiting mindset that they had and how they see themselves is how I used to see myself. But when I got on the other side of that, now I know what's possible. Now I know the tools to get there. Now I know all of that, and I'm just seeing it and I'm sharing it with they don't see. So it becomes special. Well, let's look at my marriage, and people are like, man, you have a unicorn for a wife. That's why your marriage is amazing. Yo, my wife is amazing and she's special. She is a unicorn. But so's you. So's your wife. So's your husband, or whoever this is listening to this podcast. You all are, because the Bible says we're all chosen. But my wife wasn't always that way. And I wasn't always that way. But we got to this spot because as I saw myself, who do you think I poured into as well? My wife. There was this one time, my wife, when her joining the business was one of the biggest blessings in our life. No, the biggest blessings in our life other than knowing God. Outside of the pain that came with it. But all blessings have pain. And she was just beat down and broken. And she was like, babe, I don't think I can do this anymore. I don't think I'm cut out for being an entrepreneur and being a coach. And she's telling me this with tears in her eyes and crying. And my wife's not an emotional person who just bawls her eyes out and is weak. And I'm not saying you're weak because you bawl your eyes out, but some people who are weak do bawl their eyes out because they are weak. My wife's not that person. Even in that time, she wasn't as strong as she is now, but she was just bawling her eyes out. And I gave one of the best speeches of my life. And afterwards, she was like, I wish you had recorded that. I went in and I just saw her for who she was and what could happen if she keeps going and all these things. And I said, here's what's going to happen if you stay where you're at and go back to the regular workforce. But if you keep going, more than you ever will imagine will come into your confidence, your self-worth, and you'll change the world. And I'm just telling her this crazy speech that I barely remember much of right now. I remember bits and pieces. And I just got so deep. You know why? Because that was a direct reflection of me. But on the flip side, I see so many spouses tearing each other apart because they see the world as stress, as being overwhelmed, as not being enough, as being a failure, as being an average Joe, as, comparing themselves to others and others seem like they're better than them. Well, then who do you think you put that onto? The same way I'm doing that for my wife in the positive is the same way people who are that scenario I just explained to are for their spouse. And it's not always just for the wives, but this is a High Level Husband podcast. It goes both ways. I know women who do that to the men. They just put them down. But because that's who they are. And you're going to tell me right now, no, man, like I'm killing it. I'm physically fit. I got a good job. I'm growth driven. I'm all of that. Yes, you might be. But there's a piece to the puzzle that you are missing that's not there yet. Your order and structure is out of order, I guarantee. Order goes like this: God, self, marriage, kids, business. Some part of that is out of order, which has you not running perfect. And you might be figuring that out because the self part of that isn't like drinking beer and watching TV. That self part is physical and mental growth, which is character development as well. So you might be missing that aspect of it. Because character development, when you have that aspect and you're just a lighthouse and you're unbreakable and unshakable, is that you won't put that negative frustration on your spouse. You'll be the biggest champion in those moments. But if you're putting that on them, chances are you are put that on yourself, or you put that on your employees, or you put that on your coworkers or your kids. So you still have that piece to you as a piece of the puzzle where you're not enough, where you're putting them down, the frustration, that anger. Well, the good part about that is now you recognize it and you can do something about it, because nobody's perfect. But every time I recognize something in my life, I go, ooh, I need to clean that up. I'm okay with correction because I know on the other side of correction it gets me headed in the direction faster than I was already at. And now I'm a little more cleansed, a little more pure, a little more better structured, sculpted better. So when we think we're telling our spouse the right things and we're frustrated with them and we're putting them down, that's work you need to have done on you. Well, then if you're frustrated, do you think they're frustrated with themselves? Do you think that's why they might not be saying, I can't do this anymore? Possibly. Because that my wife saying that was a direct reflection of me previously. I used to dog myself. What I was for a long time was a failure and a quitter. I'd get motivated, I'd do something, and I would quit when it got hard. Sometimes it was 2 weeks and sometimes it was 8 months. Either way, I would always do it throughout the course of my life. My wife has been in my life for 24 years and I'm 43. So she's been in it for longer than I've, over half. So she saw a lot of things, me doing that. Do you think that she became a reflection of me? Yes. So when she wanted to quit, she was just still had her subconscious mind remembering of who I used to be. Well, in that moment when I was a direct reflection and I was pouring into her, that was the new me. So it was washing away those old ways of her and cleansing her. Now she's a direct reflection of me and me of her, because she has amazing things too. Don't just think that it's all about me and she's only where she's at because of me. No, she has amazing things as well. And believe me, after that talk I just told you, about a year later, she gave me one of the speeches of her life and pulled me out of a day when I was like, man, I feel like the world's just kicking me in the face. She became that direct reflection of me. But in those certain areas of my life that where I became a direct reflection of her is that she's really poised in a lot of things. She doesn't get too high and doesn't get too low. And I needed that because sometimes I would get really, really high, but then I could get really, really low. Now I'm just like cruising. And now my highs are higher than they used to be. And my lows are where my highs used to be. And that's a good feeling. It's a great feeling. So what I'm saying is, if you're frustrated with any person in your life or the world or the government or this, that, and the other, you think the world's going to crap or you think your marriage is here and it's their fault or whatever, chances are it's because it's just a reflection of you. The cool part about that is I'm not saying your spouse doesn't have things to work on, as we all do. But when you do that, that's in the direct line of extreme ownership, of saying, hey, I have control over this. You're recognizing that if I change, this situation can change. And the Bible references to this, and I can't remember the exact verse, but I think it's Matthew 5 or Matthew something. And Jesus is talking about the salt of the earth, that when it loses its flavoring, it's because it's been trampled on time and time again. Well, that salt was trampled on. We've all been trampled on. Every single one of us. Not one person hasn't had some type of adversity. And honestly, I'll be real with you. A lot of it feels extremely similar. Just like when you get uber rich, it doesn't feel like there's much difference between when you're just like getting by. It doesn't feel like that much different. And when you're, have extreme levels of pain, it doesn't feel like that much more than when you're your high school girlfriend broke up with you. Like there's just those levels. There's not like exponential higher levels. It's really weird. So I forgot where I was. I'm actually gonna go with that topic, and so man, I'm bummed because I had a cool direction I was going with it. But that's the problem with doing these podcasts by yourself sometimes, is because of that. So forgive me on that topic of it of where I was going off topic right there. So either way, I guess what I'm saying is let's keep focused and let's take the control in our hands. And when that happens, good things happen. That when we have extreme ownership for those things, we have control. And it's not in the power of everybody else. And when we have control over that, we can do something about it. But if I only say, let's use a political example. If I say, well, I'm not going to be able to succeed until there's a Republican in office, which maybe there is some truth to that. But I still can do a heck of a lot. So I'm not going to wait for it. I have full control no matter what. You see, our problems are in one hand, our joys in the other, and it's a choice of which one we're going to look at. Let's look at the joy, but your eyes can't be in two places at once. You can't focus on joy and problems at the same time. If you're focusing on joy, your problems can come over there, but you'll see them from the joyful perspective. But if you're focusing mainly on your problems, it'll look at the joy, and what it'll do is it'll wash it out. So what's really do here, what I want to challenge you is take a peek at your life and ask yourself, is my marriage where I'm at because of me? And if it might very well be, chances are it is a big part of it. So what are we going to do about that? We say, okay, now I know it's on me and I take extreme ownership. I can do something about it and I'm going to change this. So maybe I am negative. Maybe I only see their bad. Maybe I always look for the worst in things. Maybe the glass is always half empty. Well, I'm going to change that about me. And by doing that, I am going to grow. I am now going to let that shine on to my spouse. And it'll take time. But as you become that person, good things happen. And so, it was the salt of the earth. That's what I was talking about. The salt of the earth. I knew I'd come back to it. So the salt of the earth. Some of you guys are probably yelling at the screen, man, you were talking about the salt of the earth. So Jesus said the salt of the earth was trampled on. And that's us. Well, in the very next verses, he's talking about us being a light, and that we need to put ourselves on a stand and shine for the whole world to see. He's telling us that we're the light of the world. He's seeing for you for what you really are, even though we have sins and all this other stuff that we are not. He's saying, but you're still the light of the world. Let it shine. You know why he's telling us that when he's actually the light of the world? Because he sees us as he sees himself. He sees the world as he sees himself. He's not married, but he's in a relationship with us. So he sees us as he sees himself. Nobody's ever lost from having an encourager in their life that tells them that. When you become your spouse's biggest encourager and champion, and not just once or twice, always, good things happen. I wish people could see how much I champion my wife. And she went from being a low self-confidence person to an absolute warrior. Just amazing, sturdy, solid person who I'd put up against anything. Just last night, her mom's in town. She's staying with us for 10 days. And her mom lives, she hasn't seen her mom in person in a year. And her mom's a little bit different than us. Her mom believes in God, but like Bobby out of a 1 out of a 10. Her mom is a Democrat. Her mom gets the vaxes and boosters. Me and Diane are the opposite of that. And her mom have a really good relationship, as I do with her mom, but we're very different in a lot of ways. But every time her mom comes back, she gets to see her daughter in a different light. She used to know just the nice Diane, but limitation Diane. She hadn't seen the beast of Diane that much. So Diane, last night, we do a family prayer where her mom's here, and my kids are like, all right, time for family prayer so we can go to bed. And it was Diane's turn to lead. We trade off every night, and Diane gets in there. She just lays down this prayer. Her mom's never seen Diane pray out loud. She's seen me. She's seen Diane pray with me. She's never seen Diane ever in her life pray out loud. And Diane goes, okay, let's go. Boom. And just lays down the gauntlet. Do you think her mom's like, huh? That's my child that's 43 years old, or Diane's 42. That's different. Well, if anybody knows me, how do you stand out, whether that's in business, life, or marriage? You be different. Do you think Diane was being different? She 100% was, and I'm 100% proud of her. She's amazing. And so we do that because guess what? Diane sees herself as Jesus was saying to all of us, there's the light of the world. See your spouses that. Remind them who they are. But you got to do it regularly. Remind yourself who you are. Switch that around of how you see the world. I don't see the world as a dark place. A lot of people think the world's coming to an end. Man, there's a lot of things that I don't like about it. But you know what? It feels like a pretty good place, man. I got some amazing people here. And you're one of them. I'm supposed to be that person. I got to get out of here. I'm part of a Bible study, and tonight's our Christmas party. And so I love y'all. I'm going to go just to have a great time with them. And you know what's awesome about this Bible study? Well, one, I've only been a part of this new one because I'm already a part of other ones. But I just say yes to things. I've only been part of it for maybe 2-3 months. At the Christmas party tonight, the guy who's hosting it said, all right, come early. We're going to start with a workout. It's a Christmas party. And it's not like because I met these guys at the gym. I know them from the church. That's leadership who says, yes, we're going to worship tonight. We're going to have some cool gift exchange. We're going to break some bread, but get ready to get broken off in the workout first at his house. He has a gym. And so let's go, baby. And not all these dudes in this group are physically fit, but this is going to show leadership of that and what they're capable of. So I had to share that just because it's so cool, man. I'm just so pumped. So love y'all. God bless y'all. See yourself as God sees you, and let's change how we see the world and how we see our marriage. Let that you be the change. Because if not you, then who? God bless you.